Hello, I'm Kendra from Kendra Perry Nutrition and welcome to my live video. So if you're new to my page, I had quite a few new likes this week. So if you're new to the page and this is your first time watching one of my videos, my name is Kendra and what I do is I help women balance hormones, heal digestion, and reverse fatigue so they can get back outside and back to the activities that make them feel alive. So I do this with a combination of nutrition and functional medicine. And today I'm actually talking about a topic that I'm super fascinated with these days. I'm going to be talking about heavy metals and whether they are contributing to your chronic fatigue. So I think this is a very, very important topic, and I think it's going to become more and more important as time goes on, because our environment is just getting more and more toxic. There are, thousands of new chemicals being added into our environment every day. And I think at this point, it's not a question of do you have heavy metals, it's a question of how many do you have, okay? So I want to talk a little bit about fatigue and what it actually is and what probably is actually going on. So, I recently did a video and wrote an article about adrenal fatigue and why the cause of your fatigue probably has actually nothing to do with your adrenals, okay? So research is really not pointing in that direction at all. There's actually no positive research linking tired adrenals to fatigue. And so I've been really sort of delving into some of the reasons, why we might be fatigued if, in fact, it's not our adrenals getting overrun by stress, okay? And, in this article, I mentioned, and you can read that article, my website is kendraperry.net/blog, so you can head over to the blog and read the article. It's called, Are Your Adrenals to Blame for Your Fatigue, okay? But I've talked a lot how I've been really moving from a cortisol-centric model of fatigue and more towards a mitochondrial-centric model of fatigue. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the mitochondria and what that is. The mitochondria is basically this little organism that is in every single cell. It is the powerhouse of the cell and sort of like the control panel of the cell. And it's actually responsible for making adenosine triphosphate, also known as ATP. So this is the main molecule needed for cellular energy and also for overall energy. So we need ATP to have energy, to feel energetic, and to feel good, okay? And one of the mitochondria's main jobs is to generate ATP, okay? And so really, anything that can interfere with the mitochondrial ability to generate ATP really can affect our energy levels. And what's really interesting is heavy metals actually play a huge role in how our mitochondria function. Okay, so heavy metals, what are they? They are things that are in the environment. They're elements that are normally in the environment, but, in the recent past, before 100 years ago, they were, available in relatively small amounts, but now we manufacture them and we use them frequently in industry. But not only in industry, we use them in agriculture, we use them in building, we use them in gasoline. Like really, they're kind of everywhere in our environment. They're in our food, water, soil. They're all around us. They're in a lot of the things that we come into contact on a daily basis. And that's why I say it's not really a matter of, do you have toxic metals? It's like, hey, how many do you have? Okay. Because we really, really can't avoid them at all, unfortunately. So, so when it comes to the mitochondria, heavy metals can actually influence the mitochondria in two different ways. One way is they can actually, interfere or prevent the mitochondria from producing ATP, or they can also interfere with the antioxidant system. So I think a lot of people are familiar with antioxidants, and they're kind of the good guys versus the bad guys, which are the free radicals. Okay, so free radicals, they are the villain. They get a bad reputation because we know that free radicals can damage cells and actually break them down, cause premature aging, and they're very associated with chronic degenerative illness. Okay. And that's a big reason. So to give this a bit of context, the big reason why smokers tend to age so quickly, because every cigarette is putting a ton of free radicals into their system and the antioxidants just can't keep up, right? So they're basically breaking down cells at a much quicker rate than the rest of us, which, you know, leads them to sometimes look, you know, 10 or 20 years older than their actual age. Okay, so it's what's called oxidative stress. So damage to cells by free radicals is called oxidative stress. Okay, and so that's why free radicals are kind of the bad guy. You know, they get this bad reputation, and I think a lot of people are pretty aware with, you know, why free radicals are bad for you. But, you know, to look at free radicals like the bad guy is actually a huge oversimplification, and it's inaccurate. Okay, so the mitochondria always produce free radicals. They need to produce free radicals. Producing free radicals is sort of a byproduct of that cellular energy production. So it's very normal to produce free radicals in pretty large amounts, but that's why we have the antioxidant system, because those antioxidants can neutralize those free radicals and prevent them from damaging the cell and leading to that, you know, future disease and premature aging. Okay, but the heavy metals can actually interfere with that system, because they can actually, you know, reduce your body's ability to produce antioxidants, but they also cause a significant amount of free radical production themselves. So that's a big issue. They sort of overwhelm the antioxidant system and they break down the cell. They lead to, you know, you to age a little more quickly than you want. And they also are severe drains on your energy. Like, to try to keep up with the amount of free radicals that heavy metals might be dumping into your system is massive. It requires a huge amount of resources, and it's going to be a huge drain on your energy level. So that is a big reason why the mitochondria might be dysfunctioning, why you might have fatigue. So a big reason why I've really moved over to this mitochondria perception of fatigue rather than the adrenal perception of fatigue. You know, and there's other things that can reduce your body's ability to make antioxidants, you know, any sort of pathogenic infections, so specifically gut infections, that can lead you to be more toxic. Another thing that a lot of people don't know about is exercise actually produces a lot of free radicals into the system, can also overwhelm the antioxidant system. So a lot of times, people who run marathons or do triathlons actually have a huge amount of oxidative stress. Okay, so it's pretty interesting. So another reason why your body might hold on to heavy metals actually has a lot to do with nutrition and minerals. So minerals, a lot of people know minerals, you know, magnesium, potassium, sodium, zinc, copper, those are all minerals, and they're actually the spark plugs of the body. So they're cofactors in pretty much every single enzymatic reaction that we have in the body. We really do need them to function, and so does the mitochondria. Okay. Unfortunately, I would say pretty much all of us are mineral deficient. Okay. So our soil is mineral deficient. Our food is mineral deficient. And I actually think it's completely impossible to get every single nutrient and mineral you need from diet alone. I think supplementation is very important. Okay. And this is what's really interesting. So most of us are mineral deficient. And your body, since heavy metals, you know, they're also on the periodic table. They're usually the ones that are lower down on the periodic table, and that's why they're heavy, because they have more electrons surrounding them, more orbits, so they're heavier. So that's why they're lower down on the periodic table. So they actually have a lot of similarities to minerals. So your body can actually use metals for certain functions that the body might need minerals for. So if you're deficient in certain minerals, your body may actually purposely hold on to metals because that will allow it to perform that function. Okay, so I really want to use, I'll use thallium as an example. A lot of people don't know about thallium. A lot of detox experts don't know about thallium. Wendy Myers, who is a fantastic authority in this field, is who actually kind of got me turned on to thallium and helped me learn a bit more about it. So thallium is actually what was replaced in gasoline when they pulled the lead out. So unleaded gasoline contains thallium. So, you know, there was a huge uproar when there was lead in gasoline a bunch of years ago. People really fought to get it removed, but, you know, the gasoline companies had to replace it with something, because without that metal, it causes knocking in the engine, and it actually means the engine's going to last significantly less longer. So in order for engines to last, they had to replace it with something, and they actually replaced it with thallium. And so thallium is actually 10 times more toxic than mercury, which is incredibly toxic. And it's everywhere, right? Because it's in gasoline. It is in the air we breathe. It's also in our soil and our water. It also can be a byproduct of zinc and lead smelting, which incidentally, I have one about an hour away from where I live. Okay. So, one thing that makes you hold on to thallium is potassium. So I think potassium and thallium share certain similarities. And when you're deficient in potassium, your body is more likely to hold on to thallium. Okay, and I actually saw this on my own lab results, which I want to show you guys. I meant to have my iPad here, so I'm going to go grab it. Just give me a sec. Okay. So, if I can pull this up, I actually ran a hair mineral analysis on myself, and then I ran a stool and urine metals test on myself. And it was pretty interesting, actually. And, you know, I'm someone who, you know, if a lot of you follow me, you know, I've had a lot of hormone imbalances. I've had, you know, gut dysfunction. I've had leaky gut. I've had pretty much every single parasite, bacteria, and yeast and SIBO. I've had it all. And I've worked a lot on my health. And I mean, the amount I've improved is quite substantial, but I've always had this sort of underlying fatigue, and I've never really understood, you know, what it is that I need to do about it and why it hasn't really gone away. And that's kind of what got me turned on to minerals and heavy metal testing. So let's see here. So this is a recent hair tissue mineral analysis that I did. So I'll see if you can see it, but potassium, if you can, I don't know if you guys can see that, but you can see my potassium levels are quite low. So potassium is this one right there. So you can see that I'm below what is considered normal, and actually all my minerals are pretty deficient. And so really low potassium. And then let's take a look at my urine metals test. So typically, oh, it says it can't be viewed. Let's see if I can get it from somewhere else. So typically with a urine metals test, what people will do is they'll challenge it. So they'll take a urine sample before they take a binder, and then they'll take a chelation agent, which is a binder, and that will pull a bunch of metals out of the body and actually show you what kind of the body burden of metals are. So you do need a prescription to get a chelator, and I just didn't really have time. Let me see if I can find this. I didn't really have time to get it. So what I actually did was I just did the urine test without the challenge. And I can't pull it up on my iPad, so I can't show you, but I actually have this posted on my blog. My thallium levels were like 10 times what were considered normal. So they were through the roof. And the same in the stool metals test that I did. Thallium was absolutely through the roof. Just completely shocking. And it really goes to show, you know, that I think I'm holding on to it so much because of those potassium levels. And a lot of people, you know, I live in a small mountain town. I live in the middle of British Columbia in a mountain town. You know, I drink really clean water. I breathe really clean air. And a lot of people are really confused by that. But, you know, the thing is you can actually hold on to metals for a really long time. And there was a point where I actually lived in the city. So I used to live in Calgary. I spent about 6 years there in my early 20s when I was going to university. And that may be where I got the thallium toxicity from. Additionally, I mentioned I live about an hour away from one of the world's largest zinc and lead smelting places. So that is another place I could have got it. You know, and this is something I see all the time. I work with a lot of people in my community. We are a very small place and we think we're drinking very clean water and clean air, but I see crazy levels of metals, including arsenic, tin, aluminum, mercury, lead, even uranium, cesium, that sort of thing. I see them in so many people. Okay. So a big part of getting rid of metals safely is actually remineralizing the body. Okay. And this is really a different technique than probably what you've heard of, or maybe that a lot of health practitioners use. So a lot of us have heard of chelation therapy, and this is very typical. This is what a lot of doctors use. And I would say chelation is very effective if you've had an acute metal poisoning. It works very quickly. It's eliminated very quickly from the body, and it very quickly grabs kind of whatever's in range. And for that reason, if you're doing a chelation protocol, you're going to be taking the chelation, something like DMSA or other chelating agents every like 3 to 4 hours, just because that's how quickly they're removed from the system. But, you know, there's actually a big issue with chelators. And a big thing is that a lot of times they'll just kind of stir things up. And if they don't bind everything properly, they may, you know, end up in your bone and kind of stir up some mercury that's being stored there and then not fully remove it from the body. Okay. And I see a lot of people who are doing chelation therapy who are having a really tough time, and they're extremely fatigued. And I've met a ton of people who actually believe that their health crashed after they did chelation therapy. So you do have to be incredibly careful with it. Okay. And then if you've been sort of following what I've been saying in this video, I mentioned that because metals have similar qualities to minerals, right? They're all in the periodic table. The metals are just, you know, they have more electrons in their orbit. They have more orbits, so they're heavier. So they're further down the periodic table, but they do share a lot of similarities with the minerals, which are lighter. And so your body, when it is mineral deficient, will actually hold on to metals because they can perform similar tasks in the body. So let's say your body is holding on to something like thallium because it needs it to perform some specific enzyme reaction. And then you go in with chelation therapy and you strip the body of thallium. Like, yes, you've gotten rid of the thallium, but now your body is lacking anything to perform that function. Okay. So I think that's a really big reason why people have these really negative experiences, why chelation is incredibly fatiguing and they get totally wiped out by it, and also why some people just don't ever recover their health from it, is just because they're not replacing what they took from the body. Okay, so when I go about heavy metal detoxing, I'm all about remineralization and a very sort of gentle technique. With heavy metal detox, it is not a race, okay? And it takes a long time. For example, thallium will take up to 2 years to detox from the body. So I'm about 6 months into a 2-year protocol to detox thallium. So it takes quite a bit of time. Additionally, you know, you got to make sure you're taking binders. You need to remineralize. And when you remineralize, your body will actually start to naturally let go of some of these toxins. So it's a very gentle detoxification when it comes to heavy metals. And then you're also boosting your body's adaptive reserve at the same time. So very effective. So the way I go about testing for this is I always run a hair mineral analysis. I see what minerals do we need. And then I always run a urine and a stool metals test, because you can't pick up everything on an HTMA. And some things, you know, come up better on other things. And then, you know, based on that, we can get a really good protocol going for how you need to detox going forward. So if you're interested in doing detoxification with me and running some of these tests, you absolutely can. I am booking a few months out for new clients, but definitely book a free call with me. We can chat a little bit about your challenges and see if, you know, a heavy metal detox is the way for you to recover from not only fatigue, but pretty much every single health problem you're having, right? Thyroid problems, you know, issues with stress and in the adrenal system, and digestive issues and weight gain. All has a huge toxicity component, and removing heavy metals and remineralizing the body is probably one of the most effective ways to see relief in these areas. So if you're interested in doing that, you can actually book a free call with me. You can do that on my website, kendraperry.net. And if you're interested in reading more about that, I wrote a short article on everything I talked about today, kendraperry.net/blogs. You can head over there and read that. If you have any questions, or if you like this video, please like it, or send me a comment if you have any questions. I really love putting these on for you guys. I get a lot of really good feedback, and it just helps me get the message out there, because honestly, I think a lot of us are just way too tired these days. And when we don't have energy, we're not succeeding at the level that we should be, right? We really do need to have energy to climb mountains, to surf waves, to run trails, and to succeed in life, business, and love, right? Very important. So again, I'm Kendra Perry from Kendra Perry Nutrition. kendraperry.net is my website, and you can read the article over there on my blog. So I will see you guys next week for the next live video. Okay, bye everyone.